is a recording of Alan Kirstein for the library project Our Streets, Our Stories. This is being conducted by the Brooklyn Public Library in the name of Williamsburg in an effort to collect recollections of the Williamsburg that was. So maybe we should start with what made you decide to become part of the project.
Well, because the Williamsburg that I knew doesn't exist anymore. And the Williamsburg that I knew and grew up in was something that should be told to people because it tells you how life was at that period of time. And it's a life that I doubt will ever come back.
Here's a question. Are you a regular library goer? I mean, have you been coming to this library?
Not to this library. I usually go to the library on Division Avenue. But I don't really want that. The library on Division Avenue isn't kept well. Really, it isn't. I'm disappointed with it.
Okay. All right. So going to the Williamsburg that was.
Yes.
Talk about some of your childhood memories. You grew up in the 30s, the 40s, right?
I'll tell you.
On the south side.
Right. So. As I said, I was born at 340 South 3rd Street. It was a neighborhood, a mixed neighborhood. You had all types of people. I shouldn't say all types, with the exception, it wasn't, at that time when I was growing up, it wasn't any Spanish people or black people in the neighborhood.
So it wasn't racially diverse?
No.
But, okay.
It did later on, and believe it or not, it still maintained that small town atmosphere. I always say it's a small town atmosphere.
Do you think it's still there, the small town atmosphere? No.
No. Everyone knew each other, whether it's on South 3rd Street, South 2nd Street, South 4th Street, Keep, Hooper Street. Everyone knew each other. What I remember that was very nice, during the summer months, my parents, let them rest in peace, and other parents used to sit out on the sidewalk during the evening hours, especially this was during the summer months, because in those days there wasn't any air conditioning. But people knew each other. You could walk, and any hour of the night you could and never have a problem of mugging. The word mugging didn't exist at that time. If you asked me as a 15-year-old boy what's mugging mean, I would say I don't know what you're talking about. But today, mugging is part of our vocabulary.
So do you feel like there was no crime in the neighborhood?
Absolutely none. I remember my father was in the meat business, and he had a truck. And he would never lock the truck. He would, would just park it, come home, and that's it. Now it's a different lifestyle. You're concerned about, crime. We didn't even think of that. The word crime, it was nothing. We knew each other. Everybody, it was really nice.
You didn't lock it?
No, I don't want to go that far. We locked the door,
okay.
But we locked the door because it made sense to lock the door.
Uh-huh.
My mother and father were living there, and it's a different life,
Now, you said you were born in this country, and your parents were born in this country, but in your neighborhood were most of the population born here?
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, there were people. Well, most of the people that I knew, I would say it was like a 75-25 mixture. You know, I'm going out making that breakdown. But I would be honest with you, at that time I was a young fella, and we even had gypsies living in the neighborhood. I should have brought it into you. My mother, who was a beautiful woman, I get emotional when I talk about her. She was beautiful, literally, if I say beautiful. And for some reason, the gypsies took a liking to her, you know. And whenever they had a party or what, you know what I mean, they would always invite my mother. One day, a gypsy lady said to my mother, "We would like to see you in a gypsy costume." My mother, you know, gypsy costume. Well, to make the story short, she put on the gypsy costume. And I have that picture. I should have brought it to you.
You can bring some pictures, like make copies of them so you don't give the original.
I could give it to you. I would love to see it.
If you go to like a store that makes copies and make copy pictures, you can attach it to your story.
So, I mean, what I'm trying to bring out...
I think that would be nice.
All right. But the neighborhood was very diverse. We had all types of people there, you know.
And people knew each other.
We knew each other.
So how did children, like at that point when you were growing up, how did kinds of things, how did you play?
All right. We used to play...
no video games.
No. No video games, right. We used to play marbles on the side of the curb. There was a game, marbles. As I grew up, we used to play box ball. Punch ball. In fact, talking about punch ball, we had young fellas from different streets play. We used to play each other. South Third Street.
You competed. Right?
But we used to play, complete. Wasn't competing, really. It was really a little more than that. But anyway, but we played. Everyone knew each other. I'm telling you, it was. You didn't have to go to Manhattan. That was it.
It was like an active, rich life.
Everything was there. You know, it was beautiful. What else would I tell you about that? Well, I guess that's it. You know, as far as what we played, it was marbles, punch ball, baseball, box ball.
And what were the girls doing?
You'd have to ask the girls.
Well, you probably had some idea.
Well, what the girls were doing, they also had their groups. And we had, as I grew up, we formed a social club on Broadway on Keep. You know where the Commodore movie house was?
Sure. Not there anymore.
It's not there anymore. So we had a club, and every Saturday night we'd have little gatherings, you know, dancing, you know, like that. So that's what the girls did. There were various groups of boys who formed these little clubs, and we socialized that way. It was nice.
You had one brother. You have one more brother, and he's still alive. Did you get married?
No.
No. Your brother?
He did.
He did. So you have nieces and nephews?
No.
No. This is the end of the line.
That's it.
That's it. We better get this down.
We better get it down.
Because nobody else is going to tell the story, so we have to tell the story.
My brother, married a woman from the Philippines. He's in the Philippines now at this time.
Oh, so he's not on Leonard Street.
No. No, he went on vacation to the Philippines.
Because his wife's family is over there.
He married a girl from the Philippines.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so he goes since he married her, they go back and forth every year.
Okay. All right. Now we talked about when we filled out the application, we talked about where you went to school, Alan, and to Eastern District High School and you graduated Eastern District, but you also went to college, which was not that common in the neighborhood at that time. So that's an accomplishment. Not that many people in the neighborhood were college graduates at that point.
Well, I don't know. I mean, some of my friends, one friend in particular became a doctor, two others became lawyers. It was an average group, really. Basically, that was it.
Well, in your family, education was important.
Well, my mother's parents, well, you have to understand something. My mother's parents, when they came over to the United States, it was a hard life for them, And they had, Harry, Izzy, mother, and Sadie, 5N. And they had it was a hard life. College, they weren't thinking in terms of college. They were thinking in terms of helping the family. Follow me? It wasn't like, my grandparents would have probably liked them to go to college, but the circumstances existed where, let's help the family, you see. Now, I have an aunt, Aunt Sadie. Now, she was brilliant. She worked for a bank. She spoke fluent German. And the bank sent her over to Germany. This was prior, of course, to the Second World War. And she worked at the branch in Germany. I don't know whether, to be honest with you, I don't know whether she went to college. I don't know. I really don't know about that.
But she was very smart.
Very smart.
And did she stay in Germany, or she?
No. She worked there for a period of time, and then she left. The bank sent her over and sent her back.
All right. I'm going to just switch over to something for a minute. You grew up very close to the Williamsburg Bridge.
Yes.
So in essence, you were right in a part of Brooklyn that was a hop away from Manhattan.
That's right.
And people at that point would walk over the bridge.
That's right.
Right?
I did.
So I just wanted to ask you how you felt that influenced you growing up, that proximity to Manhattan.
Are you familiar?
Mentioned, yeah, I'm from the neighborhood too, but
are you familiar with the Williamsburg Bridge?
Sure, I've walked over the bridge.
What do you remember when I'm asking you now? What do you remember at the end of the walk?
You mentioned this last week when we met, but I forgot.
You don't remember?
I don't. Well, I didn't walk over the bridge, like in the 40s or the 50s. I'm like in the last 20 years walked over the bridge, 30 years. But on the Manhattan end of the bridge.
On the Manhattan end of the bridge. When you walk over the bridge in those days, they had an area where you could sit. It was like it was spread out. In other words, if you take the train or bus going over the Williamsburg Bridge, you'll see, I think, they let it stand, by the way, concrete, what would you call it? Concrete.
Casements.
Yeah, okay. Well, that was part of it. But you see, in those days, they had an area where when you walk over the bridge, the end was like a little area where
like
you could
sitting area.
Sitting area, and Saturday nights they had music.
Oh, so that was like a gathering place for people.
Yeah, well, if you wanted to go over there, they had music. People that lived in Manhattan, on the east side, used to go there. They had like a little dancing. You know what I mean? It was something like that. Doesn't exist anymore.
Very cool. So how did your family get around? Did they have a car?
Dad had no, he didn't have a car. In those days, when we used to go to Coney Island, we went with Dad's truck, the meat
And you went
truck.
with the meat truck. I love
That's
it.
right. Of course, there wasn't any meat in there, but he took me, mother, out of it. We used to go to the Coney Island.
No seatbelts.
No seatbelts in
And a
those
lot
days.
of bouncing around.
A lot of bouncing around. And Dad didn't go to the beach. He was never that type of man. But I as a kid, went to the beach.
So he dropped you all off.
Yes, he dropped us off. He waited for us. He didn't go back to Williamsburg. He waited until we were ready to go back. And I used to go on the beach with Mother. And, if I have a picture of that, I may have it somewhere.
There was a place right on the main strip, like where all the...
Boardwalk, I mean, you're talking about Coney Island?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where they had a lot of little Jewish ladies making knishes and things. Shatskins.
Shotgun, right? They had, you had a...
Was the best.
Yeah, Nathan's.
Nathan's is still there, but Shatskins is not there
But
anymore.
Nathan, my Uncle Joe at MSP's was the manager. Maybe you would remember it. You've heard of Isaac Ellis?
It sounds familiar. But
Well, they used to manufacture all your delicatessen. They had a couple of them, but that was part of it, Do you like frankfurters?
Yeah, but I haven't had one in a while.
No, I'm not offering you. Let me tell you something. I'm digressing. I don't know if I'm thinking.
That's okay.
When I was a young boy, so I used to work at Isaac Ellis, cleaning up on Saturday nights, the dishes, as a busboy, whatever you want to call it. My Uncle Joe was the manager of the whole place, where they manufactured all the pastrami, salami, you name it. Now, I want to show you how things change. And this pertains to hot dogs. When you buy a hot dog today, or no, I should say a salami. When you buy a salami today, I'm talking about a kosher salami, the salami may have the same taste, but it's not made with the same meat, which I never knew until my uncle enlightened me. Salami was made with bull meat. Yeah, really.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't know that. I never knew. If you buy a salami today, you'll see it has like the inside, the meat area. When I was growing up, the salami had a deep color. I don't know what color I could use, red, I guess. But now you have what is called a bologna color. If you cut a salami, not bologna, if you cut a salami, you'll see it's pale. That's because they don't make it the same way. They'll put the same flavoring in, and when you taste it, you'll say you're eating salami, but it's not. Same thing with frankfurters.
I didn't know that.
Now you know it.
Cat's delicatessen, I've been there.
Cats.
Yes, that's
Cats.
good. All right. You mentioned that in your neighborhood there were block parties,
Yeah, oh, yes.
and so on different blocks.
On July 4th, first, during the Second World War, the people of that neighborhood, on that block, chipped in money. We bought a flag that was put up between buildings. On July 4th, we used to have on Keep and Hooper, we used to have a bonfire.
Wow.
Yeah, we used to have a bonfire. Really a bonfire, So we used to, I have pictures of the flag anyway, but that was the neighborhood. It was like a small town. You can't believe it.
See, if I saw somebody starting, I don't know why this keeps getting.
You saw somebody start a fire.
If I saw exactly.
At that time, it was an accepted way of life.
I don't know why the screen is going. So
You
let
mean
me.
I'm missing all this?
It was on. No, I'm sure it's in there, but well, I'm having a good time.
Right, don't worry about it.
Let me see. Teresa? Don't go away. I just want to ask. Don't go anywhere.
We had the Saturday we had the thing hooked up for the audit. Yeah,
We're having a great time. He's telling me all these stories. It's great, but every once in a while I look here, and the screen is black. That doesn't mean it's not recording.
no, it's still recording because if you let me just show you.
Okay.
You have to
I-
press
I-
something somewhere. So what is?
So I don't have to. I press that, and now it's activated again.
Good.
Okay, so we did the block parties. Okay. You mentioned that your family was Jewish. Were you active in like local synagogues there? Did you?
Not really.
No?
I wasn't. I went to. Now wait a minute. I went to school, Hebrew school, on South First Street, and it was called I forget the exact name. It was a Talmud Torah they called it. And over there, I was bar mitzvahed at 13. You know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I do remember. I remember the rabbi that taught me till this day. If you want his name, I'll give him to you.
If you want to mention his name,
Rabbi Zeitz.
Zeitz. Although from conversation we had last week, you mentioned that you went to a lot of Catholic weddings.
Yes, I went to. I grew up, and then, as I said, we had every nationality, practically anyway. But a good many of my friends were of Italian extraction. One I remember very well till this day, Patsy Rella. His father was in the oil business. Used to deliver oil to the neighborhood. And I would say I must
No
have...
one had steam heat in that day.
No. And I would say that I was invited to weddings at Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church, the one they threw down, which they should have never thrown that church down. I was very surprised that they did that. And as I said, my friends were of all nationalities, ethnic groups. I mean, it was just...
So it wasn't like a neighborhood where each group just stayed with their
No,
own.
no. Absolutely not.
Okay. All right. You were in the Army during the Korean War.
Oh, wait a minute.
Okay.
I used to go to the pool at
McCarran Park.
McCarran Pool. I used to go to McCarran Pool. I used to play handball.
In the park.
In fact, I still go there. I still participate.
There's a wall in the
That's
park.
right. That's a handball court. And I still participate. I still go there. But I don't go to I haven't been to
There was the pool was open at night, right?
In
There
those
was
days.
moonlight bathing, right?
Well, I don't know whether I ever went in the evening, but during the daytime, I used to go there. Not often, but I used to go there.
Okay. You were in the Army in the
Yeah.
Korean War. What was the neighborhood like during wartime, like in your neighborhood? Like a lot of the young
Well, I couldn't tell you about the Korean War because
You were gone.
I was gone.
But during World War II...
World War II, well, I could tell you this. The people were very,
you were a teenager. You were a young...
Yeah, but
12, 13, 14.
people were aware of what was going on, and we were concerned about it. What I do remember as a kid in that area, President Roosevelt passed away.
1945.
Okay, I didn't have the radio on, In those days, it wasn't television, radio. I was in the street, and I didn't know what was going on. All of a sudden, in the next building to us, the apartment building, downstairs there was a moving company called Katz's Moving. You know what? They used to move, want to move? Call them. I don't know what. I was in the street, and all of a sudden, Mrs. Katz ran out from the store, and she was crying, hysterical. I thought nobody really understood, people that were in the street. And we thought maybe her husband used to work, maybe something may have happened to her husband. We didn't know. And so one of the women went over to her, Mrs. Katz, what happened? Why? What's going on? President Roosevelt passed away. She was absolutely out of it. So that lays me in my mind. I remember those things.
Since you were in like a Jewish community, a little Jewish community within other communities, was there a lot of awareness in the Jewish community of what was happening in Europe to the Jewish community?
We knew that there was a problem. We knew that. But at that time, we didn't think it was that extensive. You'll follow what I'm saying. So we didn't really make a big to-do out of it, But we were aware to a certain extent, especially what happened in Germany, the news reported that themselves, so we were aware of that.
And of course, at that time, we weren't inundated with news on the television 24 hours a day.
We had the radio.
You had the radio, or you went to the movies and they had the news.
Movie-tone
in
news.
The movies, right?
That's right.
But no 24-hour.
No.
What were the newspapers at that time?
Well, you had the Daily News, you had the Mirror, you had the Journal, you had the World Telegram, you had, I'm giving you the Sun, the Times.
And wasn't there a paper called the Brooklyn Eagle?
There's you brought it up. You brought it up now. When I was in service, so I was, this is a story I'm telling you. It's all mixed in partly with what you asked me. I told you I took shorthand. Well, I ended up going to school in the Army, and I ended up being a court reporter. At that time, they didn't have stenotype machines, And in the service, I was stationed in Japan, Tokyo. And I used to sit on in trials, court-martial trials, you name it. Any type of trial you could think of. And I wasn't the type of fellow that used to go with, we used to go out, but I wasn't the type of fellow that used to go to a bar, and drink. And I still don't drink. I may have New Year's, I may have something, but that's about it. So I used to volunteer my time. And I used to volunteer at an orphanage, Japanese orphanage.
Wow.
Yeah, I used to volunteer. So.
And you were in your 20s.
Yeah, I was a young fellow then. Wait. So, our neighbor on South 4th Street, got in touch with my mother. She says, "Oh, Mrs. Kirstein, your son is in the paper." My mother didn't understand. She didn't explain to mother. She thought, God forbid, something happened to me. Oh, don't ask. It turned out, while I was volunteering in Japan, a photographer took my picture, and I was holding a Japanese boy, and I was holding his foot. I have that picture. He was sort of kicking, you know what I mean? So I was holding my foot like this and holding one leg so I could control him. And that was the picture that appeared in the Brooklyn Eagle. So you mentioned Brooklyn Eagle.
There you go. You were in the Brooklyn Eagle.
You see, so as you're talking to me, it comes out.
Exactly. So you mentioned when your work, your occupation, you worked for the Telephone and Telegraph
American
Company.
Telephone and Telegraph.
And that was that the base that you worked in? Was it in Manhattan?
Manhattan, on West Street.
Okay, so downtown.
Downtown.
So you never worked right in Williamsburg community?
No.
All right, so...
Although my grandfathers had their businesses in Williamsburg.
What kind of business?
Okay, my father's father, he had a butcher shop. My mother's father had a fruit. In fact, he had what I remember. You remember Havermeyer Street?
Sure.
You remember Havermeyer Street from South 4th Street to Grand Street?
Sure.
What do you remember? Push carts.
Push carts, but lots of children's clothing stores.
Yeah, those were the stores. But my grandfather...
And the market.
Had the market, right.
With the push carts in it, right?
No.
There was
push carts
outside.
were on Havermeyer Street. My grandfather had he used to peddle fruit. So he had the fruit. People would come by and buy it off his push cart.
There were push carts that went around the street selling...
Not on Havermeyer Street.
But around the neighborhood. When you were growing up?
When
Did you remember that?
When I was growing up, no, not really. What we had coming around the streets was a man that used to sell jelly apples. You know what that is?
Sure.
And he used to sell knishes.
I remember that.
Oh, you remember that? All right.
Same person. All right. Here's a question for you.
Go ahead.
You mentioned that there's so many changes in the neighborhood from the Williamsburg that you know.
Right.
All right. So I'm going to ask you.
All right.
What old things do you really miss? What new things do you like? And that, or that, of the new changes that have made, which ones do you really, that you like, and which ones that you wish never happened? What's your feeling about the changes that have taken place?
The changes, to me, are negative changes. And the reason for that thinking is because people don't communicate with each other like I remember. They really don't. It's not the same neighborhood. You have newer buildings going up, but the people are not the same. It's just what I remember doesn't exist anymore. Really, it doesn't. So the only changes that I see in the neighborhood now are new buildings. That's it. But you can't talk to a building.
Do you ever talk to, any of the younger people moving into the neighborhood? There are a lot of young people moving into... are there young people moving into the Lindsay Park area where you live?
No, but they're not communicating. They look at me as if I'm passé almost. They have their own way of thinking. To be honest with you, they may be thinking about things that I'm not even aware of. You understand? So there's no communication. When I go and play ball, go to McCarran or wherever I play out in Brighton Beach. Basically, the guys that I play with, the men that I play with, the boys that I play with, are boys that I have something in common to talk to them about. I don't have anything in common. I mean, I may say hello to an individual, but there's nothing really that I could communicate with them, And I don't think they're interested in communicating with me, to be honest with you.
Although there may be some young people who play handball, right?
But most of the young people now that play handball are Spanish-speaking people now. And I speak Spanish, not grammatically correct, but I could
get by.
More than get by. So it's a different culture, and it's an interesting culture, by the way. So I speak to them. But as far as the new people, the artists, and the whatever you have coming in here, there's no communication. I may not even be interested in them.
It's hard to find common ground. Yeah?
Absolutely not. In fact, when I go to a movie, take a movie, for instance. I can't remember the last time I went to a movie. But if you go to a movie and you see the modern pictures, film that's being made, notice between an actor and an actress, or two people, you'll find very little dialogue. In other words, maybe a sentence or two sentences. Compare that to a movie that was made, say, prior to the Second World War. And you'll see when you go to those type of movies, whether it be A, B, C, or D movies, there's a dialogue. There's a dialogue between two people. You don't get that today.
I will share with you that I am a great lover of movies, so
Okay.
I see movies all the time, and I agree that there are many movies that are like action, special effects, and all
right.
that, but there still are movies with dialogue that you just have to be aware of them, and before you leave, I'm going to make you a list. Anyway, I'm going to make you a little list to see movies that you will like.
Now,
Okay.
wait, I didn't finish.
Go ahead.
On South 3rd Street, I grew up with people that you know.
Yes.
Erwin Nyberg.
I don't know.
No.
Who was he?
His pen name is Alan King.
Oh, Alan King.
Okay,
yes,
but
yes.
I'm giving you the name that
Sure,
we knew him as.
Sure.
Wait a minute. I wrote it down. Mel Brooks. Donna Pell.
I don't know that one.
Donna Pell produced a a play on Broadway, Milk and Honey. Mel Brooks, you know.
Mel
Erwin
Brooks,
Nyberg, that's his name. That's an interesting story in itself. We used to play football in the schoolyard of PS 19. At that time, we used
Where was PS 19?
PS 19 was on South 3rd, Keep, South 3rd and Keep, South 2nd. Yeah. Mel Brooks lived I lived at 340, he lived at, I forget the building number, on the corner of South 3rd and Hooper. I lived between Keep and Hooper. So but I wasn't friendly. The only one I would say I knew talking to was Alan King, because we used to play football in PS19. But Mel Brooks, I used to see him go by, but I didn't know at that time that he would become a famous man. But they used to stay in the candy store, all that, So I saw these people. That was part of my growing up.
Many Jewish comedians,
Yeah, I never. He used to go. I'm not talking about Alan King. Alan King used to go to the Boer circuit all the time.
Exactly.
And he married. I'll tell you who he married. You know?
No, I know who Mel Brooks married.
He married
Anne Bancroft.
Right.
Yeah.
Alan King, or Erwin Nyberg, he married a girl. I don't know if you ever heard of on Roebling Street, between Division and Broadway. There was a monument company called Sprung Monuments. He married the daughter
Of the Monument. Okay, the Monument family.
Yeah. The family didn't like him. They thought he wouldn't be a success because they used to see him in the park.
Well, obviously they were wrong.
They were really wrong.
All right.
What else?
Tell us about some favorite neighborhood places that you remember that are no longer there.
All right. The RKO Republic
Theater, a movie theater.
movie theater.
Where was that?
That was on Grand Street Extension. They built a condominium, I think. That was the most beautiful movie house in Brooklyn. Beautiful. You never been there?
Probably I was.
Beautiful.
There are 2 new movie houses in Williamsburg, you know. There's
Yes.
one on Grand Street, I think, and one on North 4th.
Yes.
Called the Nighthawk Cinema.
Yeah.
The other one, I think, is at Williamsburg Theater, but they're new.
Yeah, but it's. I'm telling you, it's not the same.
I believe you. Those have very different atmosphere. Anyway, are there any new places that have sprung up over the years that you like?
Well, I like what they did to the pool, McCarran Pool. That seems to be very nice.
Because it was shut down for a long
For so
time.
long, right. But the pool, other than that, I can't think of anything that sprung up that...
How about along the river, the East River, like near,
Well,
that was pretty desolate.
Okay, that was the north side.
Yeah. But that connects to the south side where you were. Like if you walked along the edge, right?
No. You see, at the north side, to me, growing up, I didn't participate over there too much. So I remember it was, to me, the north side always reminded me of a small town. Because it was really isolated, if you really follow what I'm saying. You had the train station, the Bedford Avenue station, I think, on the G line. It was always a very nice, small town atmosphere. That's what I remember about the north side.
But where you were, it was closer to Manhattan in the sense of you could just walk into Manhattan over the bridge growing up.
Well, no, you was living on the north side. You could take the train station and go to Manhattan.
When did the subway start running? When did the subway, the L train, start running?
That I couldn't tell you.
But the train over the bridge is not the L train. It's like the J
No.
and the M.
No, the L train is the one that goes
Underneath.
Now, what I remember, the trolleys.
Well, there were trolleys on Manhattan Avenue and Greenpoint.
That's right. There were trolleys all over. I mean, on South 4th Street, the trolley terminal was by the Williamsburg Bridge.
Which is where the bus terminal is.
Bus terminal is now, right. That trip, the trolley, the first time I went use a trolley going over the Williamsburg Bridge, I was thrilled. I was going to work at that time.
Did they have the wire like
Yes,
on the bridge?
Yeah. It had the extension from the trolley.
And it had to attach
angled
to
over,
that.
touched, right? And then the trolleys used to go an underground area on Delancey Street where the train goes. But if you go on to Delancey Street station, you'll see there's a wall. Behind that wall was the old trolley depot. And what was it, 5 cents?
Incredible.
5 cents. I was the first, my mother let me go, at that time. So I felt thrilled that I was going over the Williamsburg Bridge alone on a trolley. I was going to work with my uncle, helping him out. So it's a different lifestyle.
And your uncle had what kind of a business?
He worked for Isaac Ellis. He was the manager of Isaac Ellis.
Who did?
He made the salamis, pastrami, you name it, delicatessen.
Okay.
So it's a whole different lifestyle. It's a whole different. I don't want to say it's like. In many respects, I'm like in a foreign country. We speak the same language, but the interest isn't there. The thinking is different, It's really different for me. I mean, I get by, what I mean. It's a totally different thing. We used to have people in the street. You would stay out in the street, talk to people you know from here, from there. It's friendly, you know what I mean? Now it's isolated. I don't care where you go, what part of the city, it's the same. It's just not the same anymore. Now, if I went to Greenwich Village, or maybe if I went to the north side, or the area, Greenpoint, you'll have more of a different group of people there, a newer type of people, artists, whatever, creative type of people, they like to say, but they're shallow in many respects, There's they'll talk about their arts, but there's something missing in the relationship between, I think it's almost, what's the word I'm looking for? Not real.
It's a different kind of real.
And I don't know if it's like no concern. You know what I mean? No concern. They may be talking about their art, things of that nature. But like we as people growing up, we were concerned if somebody was sick. We would be concerned about that person. You follow me? Here it's hi, how are you? Oh, I'm going to the theater,
I think there's still that concern, but not everybody. You follow me? You'll find it.
Oh, you may find individuals.
Yes.
No, I'm not.
You're talking about the general climate.
General climate. There are individuals that show some sort of concern, for one another. But basically, it's superficial. You know what I mean? Everybody is into their own world, their own art, their own whatever their lifestyle, whatever it is. Now, look, I want to show you one of the major changes. When I was growing up in my neighborhood, there was Lucky's Bar and Grill. That was on Grand Street Extension. Then there was another bar called Zimmerman's on South 4th Street. And there was one other bar which I can't recall, right next to each other. The people that went into those bars, grown-up people, you know what I mean? Not 21 and 22 like you have today. Men. And, all right, some of them were into gambling or whatever, some drank. That was a social place to be. Okay. Today, let's go in for the happy hour, things of that nature. It's not the same. Even a bar isn't the same anymore.
There are a few bars
Neighborhood
like that
bars.
in certain places, but they're
Of old timers.
Yeah.
Of old timers. I'm talking about the younger people now. The younger people go to bars today really, I hate to use the term, really to meet a girl. Basically, that's what they're going for. Get drunk or whatever. Who the hell knows what they do? Smoke marijuana. I didn't even know what marijuana. Growing up, let me tell you, on South 4th Street, and this is the first time I came in contact with that, across the way from Rooney's Pool Room on South 4th Street, God, my mind is really going into it, there was a candy store. And the candy store's son, was a musician. A nice fella, you know, I knew him. Hello, how are you? But his father, I noticed, wasn't getting along with him. And I thought he was a nice fella. You know, I couldn't figure that out. So one of my friends explained it to me. I didn't know. He says, you know why his father don't like him? I says, why? He says, he's always smoking marijuana. I says, what's marijuana? I don't know what the hell that is. I didn't know what he's talking about. I said, what's marijuana? Because till this day I don't smoke. But what's marijuana? And then he explained it to me. That was the first time I ever heard the term marijuana. Now it's as common as buying a soda, which I remember. So this is the lifestyle you have today, really. I don't want to say it's 100% like that. That isn't fair. But basically, the young people today, they have a different outlook on life. It's really foreign to me. I'm living in another world, to be honest with you.
You are.
I really am. So it's a different lifestyle. And I don't know whether that's a healthy lifestyle. I don't know whether that's a healthy lifestyle. You know, that it has to have some sort of
So
an
you
effect.
don't feel inclined to get on board?
Absolutely. I don't drink.
No, I don't mean that you're drinking or marijuana, but are there some changes like that you, like there, I do see some people from our generation who are very active on the internet and.
Okay, I don't have a computer. It's not that I'm not degrading a computer. I think it's a wonderful item. But you see what it is. I have one friend. I know it doesn't have to be like that, but I know. His whole life is play with the computer. Now, I was never like that. I couldn't do it. It doesn't really interest me to own a computer. Although what I usually do when I want to get information, I come to the library and the librarian gets the information for me. But for me to play with the computer or communicate with, say, give you an email or this, I still write my friend a letter or I call him up.
You still like to communicate on the phone,
verbally,
and writing letters.
Right, I still enjoy that. I still own a typewriter, and I use it. Now,
manual or electric?
Manual. I have both, a manual and electric. The typewriter is an interesting story. One thing leads to another. Do you remember Abraham and Strauss?
Sure, and on
Fulton
Fulton Street.
That's right. When I was a young boy, so my father, at the rest of peace, took me, he wanted to buy something. And I went with him, and we went walking through Abraham and Strauss, and I could still see it. There on a desk, for sale, you know. We must have passed the stationery department. There was a typewriter, a portable typewriter, a Royal. At that time, the typewriter was selling for about $21. I'm going back. I asked my father, I said, Dad, buy me a typewriter. Not realizing that for him, $21 was a lot of money in those days, you know. So he says, no, maybe another time. He'd shuffle me off. All right. Since that time, I always had in my mind, I'd like to own a typewriter. And of course, my schooling, my shorthand, one thing led to another, and I eventually bought myself a typewriter, and I still have it. So typing, to me, you see, where the world changed, Twitter is a good example. It's a wonderful example. You know, it's crazy. To me, it's crazy. Why can't I talk to you? What do I have to or call you on the telephone and hear your voice, and we're talking to each other like two normal people? But here, I go to Pennsylvania. I'm sitting on a bus. A young lady sits down next to me. You know, a nice young girl. And we're out of the Lincoln Tunnel. She takes out that little, and I see now the bus ride for me is 2.5 hours. I would say she was on that about an hour and a half. I'm saying to myself, doesn't her fingers get tired? I mean, and she was going fast, you know. So twittering, no more human conversation. It's, hello, how are you? Everything all right? That's normal. But, and then the other thing that doesn't make sense to me, that telephone.
We're going to have to walk.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead. Finish.
I'll make it fast with the telephone. The telephone. I'm sitting next to a girl on a bus, a Spanish-speaking girl. And whether she makes a call or she receives a call, I don't remember. Anyway, she's on the phone speaking Spanish. I understand Spanish. Young girl, a nice girl. She must have been on the phone a good 20 minutes, a half hour. She was talking to her boyfriend or husband, whatever it was. But I wanted to say, I felt I had to say something to her. I didn't want to embarrass her, but I felt I had to say something to her. I said, young lady, I understood everything you said on that phone. Is that my business? It's not my business. So she was embarrassed. She really was embarrassed. I says, look, I don't want to hurt your feelings. I don't want to embarrass you. I don't want to do that to you. But you should be more aware of your surroundings. You didn't know that I understand Spanish. And
Well, there are a lot of people communicating more than that on the.
No, I understand that.
phone.
But
Anyway, we're going to have to.
Yeah, okay.
wrap. We're going to end now with this interview, and it's been delightful.
it has been mine.
Yes.
Very nice.